Hi everybody, thank you for joining today. So what we're going to be covering off today. So initially, obviously myself, Simon Walker, I'm the Cloud Services Director here at Bytes. Bit of an intro, then we're going to be handing over to Amazon. So we've got Luke Parker from AWS, who's going to go into a fair amount of detail of why Windows on AWS, maybe kind of breaking down some of those misconceptions about how Windows works on AWS. And also, one of the biggest questions that we see when we're looking at migrating customers onto AWS is around the licensing. So Luke's going to go into a bit of detail around that. Then he's going to pass back to me, and we're going to go over some of the Bytes AWS practice details. Also, we're going to cover off funding assessments, migration programs, and you may or may not have heard about the OGVA program. We're going to go into a little bit of detail around that. Then we're going to hand off to Martin Edwards from Druva to talk about backup and recovery within AWS. It's one of those areas that we often find customers don't necessarily think about until they're there. So we're keen to make sure everybody knows exactly how that happens and how that works. And then finally, over to Chris from Armour, who's our key partner around securing and compliance within AWS. Again, a critical piece of technology for those organizations that need that additional kind of compliance and security, IDS, IPS side of things. And at the end, finally, there'll be a short Q&A, if there are any questions, of course. And following that, yeah, we'll get on with the rest of your day. So I think there's a poll just gone up now, so feel free to complete that. And then I'll be handing over to Luke.
Thank you very much, Simon. So, hi everyone, good morning. Thank you for joining the webinar with Bytes and AWS today. My name's Luke Parker. I'm a solutions architect and I'm a specialist in running Windows workloads on AWS. And I'm joined by my colleague, Tom Greatrex.
Hi, good morning everybody. I'm Tom Greatrex. I'm a Microsoft on AWS specialist and here today supporting Luke.
Excellent. So here we go. What we're going to discuss today is the answers to the burning questions that Tom, I and Bytes get out in the field. And over the last year in my tenure at AWS, the questions are broadly similar. I hear the same questions time and time again, and this is what we wanted to bring to you today. We wanted to answer some of these questions for you and really dispel some of that uncertainty around what you can and can't do in AWS when it comes to Windows workloads. So you can see some key questions there around how does licensing work on AWS? Can you procure licenses through AWS? Can you bring your own? Is it supported to run Microsoft Workloads on AWS? And is it cheaper? How much will it cost? And that's exactly what we're going to be talking to you today about. So let's get on with that. So first of all, why should customers choose AWS in the first place, beyond just Windows workloads? So first of all, it may come as a shock to you, but we've been running Windows workloads for longer than Microsoft have been running Windows workloads in AWS. It's a total of 13 years. We actually started in 2008, where Azure started in 2010. So we have a lot of experience in this field. And as our CEO of AWS says, there's no compression algorithm for experience. Through these 13 years, we've been obsessing about our customers and helping them run their Windows workloads in AWS. And you can see here, we've got 77 availability zones spanning 24 geographic regions. So that's all about making our services redundant and highly available so that you experience the least amount of downtime possible. When it comes to security and compliance, of course, without trust, there would be no business in the cloud. And that's why we have 230 plus security and compliance features to help you meet your regulatory and security goals. When it comes to customer obsession, we like to say at AWS we're unusually customer obsessed. And the reason why we say that is because 90% of our features are actually sourced directly from customer feedback. And in regards to customers and the breadth and depth of the different types of customers we have out there, Across the world, we got 7,500 different government agencies using AWS. And another thing that makes AWS unique is our drive to reduce costs for our customers. The more customers that onboard and join us at AWS and start using our services, the more that we can reduce the cost of those services. And we're actually the only cloud provider who has a proven track record of proactively reducing our service costs. And the last service cost that we reduced in regards to Microsoft Workloads is SQL Server on RDS, Relational Database Services, our managed DB platform. So that's a bit of a summary of why customers choose AWS in the first place. So moving on. So the million-dollar question, or hopefully quite not that much, the million-dollar question. Why run Windows workloads on AWS? And why should you not just consider Azure first and go there by default? Well, we're going to dig into that today. So here are those headline reasons as to why we consider Windows a first-class citizen on AWS. It's the breadth and depth of our platform. Over those 13 years of running Windows workloads on AWS, we've developed a lot of features and functionality just to make that experience of running Windows workloads easier for our customers. You heard me talk about reliability and also performance. We can actually show and prove to you why running SQL Server on AWS is actually faster and more performant and cheaper than running it on another cloud. And of course, you heard me talk about lowering total cost of ownership. And we'll talk about some of the innovation and experience in our platform too. So let's dive deep into each of these headline features. So first of all, when it comes to the breadth and depth of our platform, the unique call out I want to make here is that AWS has 48 unique services that the next cloud provider just doesn't have. And again, this is because of our experience and time we've had in the market, listening to customers and developing our features and functionality. So you can see across the middle there, we just have more unique services and capabilities to offer through the AWS platform. And it's actually completely supported to run Microsoft Workloads in AWS. And you can see across the bottom, it's absolutely supported to run SQL Server, Windows Server, full Active Directory, run your development tools across the Visual Studio suite of applications. It's absolutely a well-trodden path by our customers. And the interesting thing I'll mention here is that AWS actually has communication and connections back to Microsoft Support. So we can actually, when we see issues with running Windows workloads on AWS, we can actually speak to Microsoft if we have issues there. Okay, moving on to the next slide. High performance and reliability. Now, what I mentioned a little bit earlier is that we've had independent research carried out by ZK Research that running SQL Server on AWS is actually faster and more performant than running it on Azure. You can actually see that we have 2 times more performance in this instance, okay? So that was research not carried out by us, but independent research partners. Secondly, on the right-hand side, the next largest cloud provider in the period between 2018 and May 2020 had 24 times more downtime that we had in AWS. So again, I believe this is testament to our ability of running Windows workloads on AWS across our global infrastructure. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Security and compliance. Security really is job zero here at AWS. Without security and compliance, we wouldn't have our customers' trust. And you can see across the right-hand side there, we have a global set of standards that we can help you adhere to, such as ISO 27001, 9001 there, and across, of course, on the right-hand side, we have Cyber Essentials. when it comes to security and compliance, make sure that you let us know what your requirements are of us, and we can definitely help you achieve those requirements and certification goals. Moving on to the next slide. Lower cost of ownership. So our research firm that we asked to do a total cost of ownership exercise across Windows workloads of a 5-year period actually came back to us and showed us that over a 5-year period, we can help customers achieve an average return of investment of 442%. And this is what our customers have been telling us over this 13 years period. We can really help you reduce that total cost of ownership. And there's a number of offerings that Bytes can run in partnership with AWS to help you make those cost savings real. And you can see in the second paragraph there, we have the optimization and licensing assessment, which can be carried out by Bytes to really look at your Windows Server and SQL Server estate and understand whether you're running that in the most optimal way based on your licenses. And finally, looking at the innovation over this 13-year period. For example, one of the most exciting innovations that I really enjoyed was the fact that when SQL Server 2019 was released, we and AWS released that in the same week. So there's no lag between software coming out of Microsoft and being able to run and procure that from AWS. There really is no lag there. And as well, we have the AWS Launch Wizard for SQL Server. That makes it really simple to deploy a highly available database and Windows Server infrastructure in a matter of minutes. So you can see there's a whole lineage here of innovation and features. Now, the burning question, how does Microsoft licensing work on AWS? Well, it's a lot more simple than it's made out to be. And let me show you why that is. So there's two main models for licensing of Windows workloads in AWS. You can procure those licenses through us, AWS. We're a licensed reseller of Microsoft licenses when it comes to Windows Server and SQL Server, and we often call that license included. And there's the other model, there's bring your own license. So AWS is a license mobility partner where your software allows it and your enterprise agreement allows that from Microsoft. You can bring your own license. So let's go into each of those models and some of the advantages of each. So when it comes to license included, the real kind of benefit our customers gain from this is that AWS looks after the compliance of that workload in regards to software licensing. If you increase the cores, the CPUs of that server, or decrease them, we help keep that cost in alignment with those cores. It's completely down to us to be able to manage that on your behalf. And the great thing about that is the license cost maps with the utility model of paying for cloud services. You turn that server off, you stop paying for that license. And that's why our customers really like license included. However, a lot of our customers have a long relationship with Microsoft and they have licenses maybe they bought just last year that they want to make sure they utilize in AWS. And the answer is yes, you can bring your own licenses to AWS, and many, many of our customers do. Now, what does this allow you to do? It allows you to leverage your existing investments in the Microsoft stack. So you're not leaving behind your skills, you're not leaving behind your commercial investments in Microsoft. There's many instances in which you can bring those licenses to AWS. So let's go into a popular example of that. SQL Server, I think, is one of the biggest success stories of bringing your own license and also using the license included model. So you can see when it comes to BYOL, bring your own license, you have two options to make sure that you remain in compliance with Microsoft. You can deploy that software to shared tenancy or dedicated tenancy hardware. And that allows you to make sure you can utilize that license in both instances. However, of course, you can buy the license with the compute itself. So that could be just running on a virtual machine itself, or you could be quite modern and be running our database as a service, RDS, Relational Database Services. and that comes with the license included as well, so you don't have to worry about compliance there. And the great thing about running Sql Server on AWS is that consistently across the different instance types, we see a lower cost saving ranging from 58% to 73% there. And again, this isn't just our research, this is done by independent researchers. And the cost savings don't really stop there. Just because you utilize your existing licenses, that's just the start of the journey that you go on with Bytes and AWS. So for example, we spoke about that engagement, the OLA engagement, optimization and licensing assessment. That's all very much in the first phase. And this is something we see pattern-wise across all of our customers. They need to understand what's out there in their environment today, what licenses they're utilizing, are they over-provisioned, under-provisioned, and that needs to take place before any migration work. And as you move up the cloud adoption scale there, that's when you start moving into optimization and modernization, moving away from just SQL Server on a virtual machine, maybe SQL Server on our managed database platform. And really just to drive home this total cost of ownership reduction and cost reduction of running Windows Server and SQL Server on AWS. This is looking at the OLA program results over a sample size of 27 customers. And you can see on average, we're saving customers 49%. And this is really the value of bringing Bytes on board and doing a deep dive into your licensing estate and seeing what you can and can't bring and driving into those optimization options. So, in summary, you've heard me talk about why Windows on AWS. It's all about the reliability, 7 times less downtime hours between 2018. In 2018, for example, performance, we're typically running 2 times faster. Security, remember it's job zero for us. If we don't have your trust of security, we don't have the business at AWS for cloud security. Lower TCO, 56% lower TCO over a 5-year period, as reported by IDC. Innovation, those 13 years we've been able to develop really interesting native services. And of course, the experience piece I've just spoken about there. Now, I'm going to hand over back to Simon to talk about the questions when considering cloud vendors.
Great, thank you, Luke. I've actually got this slide a couple of times. I've got this one later on as well, so I might save this one for later. Keep my flow. But you got a sneaky peek view of what things to consider when evaluating cloud vendors. So thank you, Luke, for that. Any questions, whack them in the chat, and we'll have a look at those at the end. So I just wanted to give a bit of an overview of why Bytes, I guess, for AWS. We've obviously got AWS supporting us on this. We work very closely with AWS to the extent that we do a lot of billing on behalf of Amazon. So we're a solution provider. So that essentially means that not only do we provide consultancy services, support services, managed services, but we also actively bill and provide cost optimization, cost savings, security audits, governance best practices for our customers. So we very much do the complete journey from you just looking at Amazon as a potential candidate all the way through to looking after the billing, optimization, security services and support. So a lot of the projects we're working on in the public sector at the moment do require that because they may not have had that exposure, but we're able to kind of handhold every step of the way. We've got a whole bunch of competencies now. So what that means to you is that Amazon audit us on a regular basis to make sure that what we're doing and the processes that we're carrying out and the builds and the architecture are kind of in line with best practices. So we are a well-architected partner as well. So we actually actively get paid by Amazon to go out and review customers' AWS infrastructure to make sure that it is running to best practice, is optimized, secure, and as efficient as possible. We've got hundreds of managed service customers now, and while they're supporting or managing cost optimization and billing, we look after well over $2 million a month of customer spend in AWS, and we've carried out hundreds of migrations. One of the big things to call out, and one of the good things that Amazon like us to do, is actually apply for funding on behalf of our customers. And I'm going to go into detail about that later on. But just as a kind of figure, we actually managed to claim $1 million of funding towards customers' migrations, projects, POCs, assessments, just last year. And this year we're set to smash that. First half of this year, we've already claimed about $600,000 or $700,000, and we've still got a fair few months to go of this year. So it's a really good benefit for entities that obviously don't have huge budgets. It's big enough cost of disruption, of looking and moving your infrastructure somewhere. If we and Amazon can kind of remove some of that cost away, then generally that's seen as a positive. We also won Partner of the Year for Windows Workloads in 2020, so that was a good accolade that we achieved. And we're one of the only partners in Europe actually to have digital workplace, which is Amazon's kind of workspaces, online, VDI, whatever you want to call it, and obviously Windows competency as well, which is our kind of focus area about helping customers migrate Windows workloads and modernize those workloads. In terms of what the practice looks like here, we built it on the 5 pillars of AWS. So effectively, security, reliability, performance, operational excellence, and cost. And we cover a lot of these services with our professional services and our architects and engineers and support team. But we do also use tooling to complement what we do. So on the operational excellence and cost, we use a tool called Cloud Health to help us manage our customers' optimized billing state and security. And on the backup side of things, obviously you're going to hear from Druva. And also on the security side of things, we have Armor, so I'm not going to steal their thunder and talk about that. But everything we do, we try and keep things simple. It's complicated enough moving to a cloud, so we try and use cloud native. It keeps costs down, it keeps interoperability smoother and slicker, and we find that when customers are moving into the cloud, wherever we can use the tools in the cloud, the better. Perfect. So our key services, backup and DR, we'll talk a bit about with Druva. Cost reduction and optimization is a key area that we obviously offer our customers. So I'm just going to close the door. The kids are screaming.
Sorry guys, I've just popped a poll up in the meantime, so please feel free.
Sorry guys, I'm back. Joys of working from home.
That's okay.
Yeah, so let's do that poll. Yeah, so the final services just to cover off is the AWS support. So a lot of organizations do need that extra kind of support. We offer that 24/7. We actually are launching our partner-led support as well, which is an Amazon endorsed support offering. So you can take enterprise support from Bytes, but effectively not pay what you would necessarily pay with Amazon, but you get all the same features and functionalities. Security, we kind of attack this with our well-architected reviews, but also we use Armor as well for those organizations that need that extra security. Big part of the business is migrations, which I'm going to cover off in a second. And then as customers are becoming more confident with the cloud, we look at refactoring, architecting, modernization of those workloads. So we can actually transform compared to what you're doing at the moment with traditional monolith kind of applications to more serverless applications. Now we're just going to go into a bit around the engagement process and how we effectively manage that. So the way it works is typically customers will be at different life cycles depending on their kind of experience with AWS generally. So we have different kind of phases within that life cycle, but typically everything will be started off with a call, with a scoping call, where we'll talk customers through where they are on their journey and where they want to go. And that could be just a single workload that they've decided that it will be best in a cloud environment to take advantage of auto scaling, security, the access to different regions, or whatever it may be. And then we'll move into what we call a technical workshop, working to the detail, and then we're going to build out a statement of work. That statement of work will then be applied for funding into AWS, and then assuming that everybody's happy, then that's when the project kicks off. So it's very straightforward in terms of the engagement process that we have. However, on each of these phases, as you can see on the arrow there, there's different funding programs that we can tap into. So there's a migration assessment funding, which I'll go into a bit more detail. There's POC funding. So if you wanted to try something in AWS, we can typically get funding for that. And then, of course, if there is a workload or an estate or a data center that needs to be migrated, again, we can get funding for that. Once it's in Amazon, there's a modernization program where we can get funding for the discovery phase. That's working with your engineers to see how you can move away from legacy infrastructure to more serverless-based computing, which effectively will drive your costs down by 50, 70% in some cases, because you're effectively moving from having resources always running, whether you need them or not, to just having resources when a request comes in. So it makes a huge, huge difference. So funding and migration processes is what I'm going to go into some detail now. Essentially, there's a bunch of programs, and this is kind of a TLA crazy slide that you'll get used to the more you work with Amazon. But you don't need to know these. It's our job to know what these are and how to apply for them. So the migration assessment is a classic one. It's called OLA. Within Amazon want you to effectively be really confident about what that looks like, what those workload looks like in their environment. And you want that confidence as well in terms of the cost, the performance, what's going to work, what's not going to work. So that's why they built this program, which we are part of, around the migration assessment. And we've got very many public sector customers that are taking advantage of this at the moment, where we analyze the on-premise estate and look at what that's going to cost in AWS, but it does go a lot further. If customers are actually looking to do migration, then we move that into discovery migration planning, where we actually start going into the detail of some of the applications, some of the workloads, seeing what that would look like on Amazon and how that will be migrated. So within the programs, you've got OLA, then you've got another program called WRMP, which is the Windows Rapid Migration Program, which is a huge piece of funding that Amazon will offer based on the consumption that we forecast you're going to spend within AWS. And often we are seeing that covering at least 50% of all costs, but in some circumstances, and in a couple of examples I've got later on, 100% of all those costs of migrating. So organizations in the public sector that are being asked to do something big, either move to Crown Hosting or move to another hosting provider or do some modernization, there becomes a really good conversation there for us to have, where we say, well, actually, yes, you could do the other option, or with us and Amazon, we can give you a team of architects, project managers, engineers, business analysts to help you migrate to the cloud and help you modernize those workloads to drive down that cost. And that's a pretty compelling argument we're finding, particularly as that's fully funded, or you do it on your own and move to another data center. So we are seeing some heads turn as we have these conversations, and one of the reasons why we're doing this today. MAP is another program that we can take advantage of. It's the largest funding program that Amazon offers. And the good thing about MAP is it effectively pays for that whole discovery and migration planning phase, which is typically the biggest hurdle to get over, because people want to know where they're migrating to and what's going to happen when they get there. So Amazon will fund us to do that whole piece. Plus they will fund 50% of the entire statement of work, up to $400,000. And they will also give credits back on those workloads, around 25%, as you're migrating them. So we take advantage of all these funding programs. We do all the work, we do all the application, we get audited for that, and we use those funds to pay for the resources to help you on your journey into the cloud. The final one to mention here is the modernization. So once you're in the cloud, we don't believe really in just sitting there and doing what you were doing before, because the benefit of being in the cloud is using some of these intelligent tools, some of the serverless architecture that's available. So there's modernization programs that we can tap into to get more funding to help work with your engineers to see how we can modernize those workloads. OGVA is something that we're kicking at this point as well, which is a discounted program that Amazon launched back end of last year, but really it's only getting going this year, where you can get large discounts on your Amazon spend. And I'll cover that off in a slide a bit later on. But that's OGVA is one of those ones where we would need a follow-up conversation about. It's a really, really good offer. And open to all public sector customers, and it really does kind of make the proposition of AWS competitive. We move on to the next slide. And again. So this is the migration assessment. So any takeaway I would say from today would be, if you're thinking about the cloud, then a migration assessment is where a good place to start. Effectively, it allows us to request some funds from Amazon and some really good tooling. We use Cloudamize typically to analyze your estate and tell you what that's going to look like in AWS. We've got a pretty slick motion now. We're doing a lot of these. So effectively, it's very little pain on your side. It's deployment of some agents. And then we sit back, wait for a couple of weeks. Once we've got all the information, we get all the right sizing information, we get some of the application dependency information where customers need that, and we can potentially identify easy workloads that can be migrated quickly. But overall, it gives a really good picture of the funding programs that you might be able to get access to. And a quick poll's come up. So yeah, if you're interested in fully funded AWS assessment, please select this, and one of the team will contact you. As I said before, this is probably the biggest takeaway. There's no real risk to it. Every customer we've done it for, they get a huge amount of benefit from it. It can be a real eye-opener, particularly on what funding is available that we can potentially tap into for you. So yeah, please feel free to answer that one. Great, quite a few there. And next slide, please. The other element, a lot of organizations we talk to are saying, well, we're not quite ready to throw everything into a cloud right now. However, we are looking at DR. We want to retire a data center. We don't want to look after our DR kit. What can you do in that space? So again, there is a program within Amazon. They acquired a company called Cloud Endure several years ago, and they've incorporated it in very well into the rest of their services. And we're a competency partner for Cloud Endure, so we can actually do an estimate of what your DR costs might look like in AWS. We can get POC funding available, so you can actually test it on a subset of servers. We're seeing a lot of customers saying, well, actually, we don't want that old data center. We don't want to renew the hardware in that. It's a kind of a dead weight, really. We're not quite ready to move fully into AWS, but this might be a step, particularly for some kind of key applications. So if that's something you want to talk about, then yeah, 100% get in touch with that as well. The next slide. So the One Government Value Agreement, OGVA. So what I want to say on this is it is a 3-year term agreement. Essentially, this has been agreed with AWS and the Crown Commercial Service on behalf of the Cabinet Office, as it says on the slide. And if you're familiar with EAs, EDPs, or any of that stuff, it's essentially that, but it's designed specifically for public sector. And there's a couple of really good benefits that I see. It's designed not just for larger enterprises that are looking to spend lots, it's also for foundational entities that might want to start spending some. So both entities can get access to this funding, and that's really, really key for me, because I think it's open to all really in the public sector, and it's very flexible, and we work with our public sector customers to ensure that that commitment is going to be achieved, and that's key. And there's ways and means of making you ensure that you will hit that commitment, because you are able to put other purchases through that commitment, such as Marketplace, which is where you could buy, for example, Trend licenses, Sophos license, or some other licenses that you were going to buy anyway, but you can transact it through an OGVA agreement with Amazon or Marketplace. So we work very closely with our customers to ensure that whatever the commitment is, to achieve that additional discount, you will hit. Because nobody wants to see you kind of committing to something and not hitting that number. But the discounts do warrant a good look at this, because it's certainly valuable to any public sector organisation, and open to any public sector organisation within the UK. So if you are interested in this, or you want more information, which I suspect you will, please reach out to us and we can talk to you through that. It's obviously something that we normally engage on when we're talking about the OLA assessments. Following that, we will say, actually, you do qualify for the OGVA, and this is how much it will bring your costs down as a result of taking this on board. So it's really quite important from that perspective. Next slide. So yeah, this is I think probably most interesting. So we work with small councils, large councils, sustainability entities within the public sector, and every single one of them we've got funding for, different scales of funding. So there was a small council we work with, started playing with AWS, not done a huge amount, had 80 servers as a target to migrate. We achieved $45,000 of funding and $25,000 of EMP. So EMP is the only funding program I haven't mentioned, which is the end of life migration program. So if you've got Windows workloads that are running on non-supported Windows OS systems, Amazon have a funding program to package those up and put them on AWS. So if you're thinking, oh, I've got all these applications that aren't even supported where they are, let alone in Amazon, there is an answer, and we would probably be able to answer that. And we do all the packaging, we do all the consultancy for that, and help you, and Amazon fund that as well. And in this example, this customer had five of those applications sitting on legacy Windows servers that weren't supported, and we were able to get funding for that and migrate them. So the total cost was zero to that council to do that migration, and we're hoping to do more in that space. Then on the other side, on the larger scale, a large council, 700 servers, going through an $80,000 discovery migration plan funding. So that's where we do the OLA assessment using Cloudomize, but then we go into the detail, looking at the applications, looking at their AD, looking at the network, looking at security, and we start pulling it all together into a migration plan that can be presented to the team, signed off, and then we would move to the actual migration, where we've achieved $250,000. And the actual migration cost obviously is less than that. So that particular example, the customer will be paying nothing for the entire design, migration, application, modernization to a certain extent that we're having to do within this project. Amazon is covering all those costs with Byte, so huge benefit. And this is the other end of the scale, particular project for a public sector who were bringing over an application that was developed in the Netherlands, needed us to design and build a new platform in the UK. It was hosted on a traditional data center in the Netherlands, and in the UK it was going to be targeted to potentially AWS. So we're able to get POC funding for this one, and we were able to design and architect the environment out using autoscaling serverless architecture. It was to pull in air quality various places around the country, and we got funding for this one as well. Didn't completely cover the cost because the actual serverless computing architecture is actually pretty cheap, because you only use it when you use it. So we see costs quite low on that, but we still achieved the vast majority of costs in funding, which was really helpful for this particular entity. And as I mentioned again, where to start, funded migration assessment. If you have got over 50 servers that are in scope of you're potentially looking at, then talk to us about a funded migration assessment. So this is the slide that was flagged up earlier. I think it does build, Danielle, so just build it. It's fine. So one of the things we often come up against with customers looking at cloud, and sometimes they can be a little bit hoodwinked straight into, well, we've always used Microsoft, so we're going to go one way. Where there are other clouds, there is GCP, there is AWS, of course, and there is obviously Azure, and there is Oracle, and there's various other ones out there. And I think what we want to do is just make sure that when you are looking at those clouds, you are looking at these key criterias. And some of them will be relevant to you, and some of them won't be. So you might say, global infrastructure. Do I need a partner in the cloud space that has data centers in more places than any other cloud provider? You might say no, because we're only UK based. We're never going to be anywhere beyond that. So that's not that important to us. So as long as they've got enough data centers in the location and can offer the high availability that I need, then that's what's important. Security is key generally for any entity. So you want to be going into the detail of that, looking at their certifications, looking at the processes they've got in place, what's covered, what's not covered, and we can obviously help you with that. Also, innovation is key. Just moving to the cloud really is just a sidestep. It's just using the services that are available there that I think is important to look at. So don't just look at when you're shifting, look at what do we want to do in the future? Do we want to look at the information that we're getting from care homes, for example, to look at the kind of accidents that happen and start creating AI algorithms around that, so then we can maybe prevent that by doing X, Y, and Z, implementing different IoT-based technologies to track some certain things. You know, that's the kind of things. Okay, I want to do that in the future. There's some key projects. Does the vendor have those kind of services that I can tap into? Can we do that? Cost is obviously key. Cost for us is getting there is a big cost generally. If we can take that away, as I've mentioned, brilliant. So does the cloud provider take that kind of initial cost away? And once you're in there, are there discounts available? Are there procurement methodologies that I can take advantage of to reduce those costs even further? What are they? Are they easy to implement? Again, it's something that we work with our customers. Performance, probably stopped. I'm running out of time maybe. Performance is really key. That's all right. Performance is really key in terms of if you're a research institution and you need to compile a lot of data very quickly, and you need that performance. So look at the performance stats. There's lots of documentation out there that can do that. Support and documentation is key. How are you going to learn about this stuff? How are you going to get onto this? How are you going to train your team? Are there programs that they can get on? Is there free training that they can get? Are there lots of partners that can do this for us in the future? So that's another key area. Track record, how long have they been doing it? What are the SLAs? I always find that a lot of customers don't actually look at, and cloud providers are typically very good at hiding it, but you can get it. What are their average SLAs, availability of that platform? Because that's key. That's what you look at if you're looking at traditional hosting. What is it in the cloud environment? How quickly do they respond when there's an issue? And essentially, can I start small and grow? Or is it they're just interested in the bigger boys and that's what they want? They want the bigger boys and they don't necessarily interested in the smaller ones that might grow. So look at the kind of customers that they've got, look at the case studies they've got. So they're all kind of the key criteria that I would suggest kind of to look at when building out a kind of consideration of cloud. So that's me. So now I'm going to hand over to Martin.
Thanks very much, Simon. Much appreciated.
No problem.
So welcome, everyone. I'm going to try and run this as fast as I can, but I'm just really wanting to introduce you to Druva that provide data protection for the cloud era. Druva offers a SaaS-based platform for data protection. We have services that cover you really for 4 main workloads that you may have. So data within your traditional data centers before you go through migration into AWS. Protection of data that might reside within your endpoints, so laptops, desktops, Office 365 or G Suite, and indeed Salesforce. And data that exists within your AWS environment that you have already migrated. Druva has built the Druva Cloud Platform that is natively, inherently designed within AWS. allowing us to provide you an entire backup and protection service completely out of AWS and via the web. So you as a customer, you don't need to have additional AWS spend. We provide backup and data protection in the same sort of way that you consume Netflix today, possibly at home. For your workloads that you have migrated to AWS, we can provide an orchestration layer allowing you to cover backup, snapshot retention, automated disaster recovery and cloning of environments, all within your AWS from a single pane of glass, allowing you to manage not only a single AWS account, but multiple AWS accounts if you have those within your setup. Really, by using the cloud as a module for providing, it allows us not only to protect your data for backup and recovery and disaster recovery purposes, no matter where your data is originating from, but using the power of the cloud, we can help you as a business improve your governance posture by allowing you to understand where your data is, what data you have, and what content that data has. Provide far simpler ways of collating that information together for e-discovery purposes, as well as built-in archival within our solution, so allowing you to migrate older historic data that you're needing to keep for governance reasons, but keep that in cheaper tiers of storage, as well as providing you as an organization far better intelligence around the data that we have collected from all of your various sources. By running this out of the cloud, it allows us to provide this service without the need for you as an organization to install any additional hardware or complexity within your environments. So there's no media servers, no appliances or anything that you need to install and manage and maintain. Druva does all of that for you, providing you the ability to just manage what it is you need to manage, which is the protection of your data. Today, I'm just going to drill down into a few extra pieces specifically related to the cloud workload protection as we're talking about workloads on AWS. So the Druva solution, Cloud Ranger, provides you the ability to manage your snapshots for backup and recovery. It allows you to manage and automate your archiving and compliance, as well as allowing you to take care of your business continuity for DR and DR plans across a whole host of AWS workloads. We provide simple, flexible, but scalable policy management for backups, where you can apply global policies, not only to cover you for a single AWS account, but multiple AWS accounts being covered by the same backup policies. We allow you to restore in a fast, efficient manner, whether that be at a file level, whether that be as an instance, or whether that be as a volume. We allow you to archive and move EBS snapshots into other storage tiers. So your snapshots that you are keeping for long-term retention can be easily archived off to Glacier Deep Archive, etc. And we provide you the ability to make your snapshots searchable to, again, assist you from a governance perspective. So rather than going back and restoring entire snapshots of devices to get to an individual file that you are looking for, we simplify that whole process for you as an organization. One of the other main focus areas of our product is allowing businesses to take clones of environments, and replicate those either into different availability zones or indeed completely separate AWS accounts to make sure that you are protected from any issues that you may have, whether that's malicious insiders, ransomware, or any other attack on your business. DR plans allow and provide you agility for business continuity, making sure that you do have access to your systems, whether the initial system is corrupt or down for any reason. Unlike other tools that are available for protecting your AWS workloads, Druva is 100% SaaS. So again, there is nothing that you need to install within your AWS instance, nothing that you need to pay for running and compute. It provides a true SaaS-based Netflix-style solution without the need for you to take on and manage additional services on your solution. And it's simple. You can be up and running and ready to start in 5 minutes or so. We offer a radically simple experience. The reason people choose Druva is because of performance and scalability. We can manage multiple account backups on a single system. It's everything we do is IAM based from a role security perspective, and we have API integration into third-party tools to help you manage your systems. 5-minute deployment, single pane of glass management. And more importantly than anything else, far, far greater total cost of ownership savings across other ways of managing the same sort of workloads within AWS. Very, very quick, but very willing to have meetings with you outside of this to delve into any specific reason, any specific workload that you're interested in protecting, whether that be workloads that you haven't yet migrated or indeed your AWS service that you're looking to deploy. Thank you very much for your time, and I think we now hand over to Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, everybody. I'll keep this as brief as I can because we're nudging up against time. My name's Chris Bone. I'm the Channel Partner Manager for Armour across EMEA. What Armour does is very profound, and you might think that it might be difficult to explain it in 10 minutes, but to put that in perspective, it probably takes me longer to describe it than it does to deploy it. Armour Anywhere is the kind of the flagship security as a service product from Armour that Bytes AWS recommend as part of the onboarding process into their environment. Basically, we're a cloud security company. We protect your applications and your data. We protect them from intrusion and theft. And the reason the product's called Armour Anywhere is that means anywhere. We don't mind whether you have it on-premise, off-premise, on AWS, on another cloud vendor. We protect with a pane of glass, with a single pane of glass with zero infrastructure deployment. And more interestingly, what we provide out of the back is threat detection and response. So we will alert you as to indications of compromise and give you guided remediation on how to fix it, both from a threat, from a penetration, but also from a vulnerability standpoint. I'll cover that off in a second. As part of that, because we're storing logs and we can store logs for you for up to 13 months, we're giving you audit ready and continuous compliance against all of the major frameworks, including GDPR, PCI, DSS if you're doing taking payments, etc. So overall protection for mission critical apps and data. What I wanted to start with is kind of have a look at the story so far. I can't move the slides forward. Thank you. So we see in the market that customers are moving to the cloud because it enables the digital transformation at a much faster speed. We all know that digital moves at the speed of light, legacy moves at the speed of lead. And customers are using cloud migration and cloud projects to drive the digital adoption, to make it easier for organizations to interact with their consumers, their service consumers, or their customers. As legacy techniques are not seen as agile enough, and we've all seen the stats from Gartner that say even standing up a VM can take a number of weeks in an enterprise organization. So cloud does solve these legacy and connectivity problems. We have agility, we have scalability, we have low cost, we have flexibility and portability. But I like to think of it as it's not your get out of jail free card. And there's this thing called the shared responsibility model. And Amazon and other cloud providers talk at length about the number of security features and security services that they offer. But they provide security of the cloud. It is your responsibility as a customer to provide security in the cloud, i.e. protect your workload. And Forrester and IDC are now all talking about the fact that this is the age of workload protection, because that we are now moving from a single fixed environment to a hybrid environment. So if I just take a look at the journey to total security, in the past it was I built a fortress. Okay, I built the walls, I bought software and tools, and I tied all those tools together, and I made sure that only the people that I wanted could get in through the gate. And once they were in through the gate, I knew exactly what they were doing. I owned it, I built it, intrinsically I understood it. Cloud journey means I now need to deploy in various different environments to get the flexibility, to get the agility, to get the scalability. But wherever I deploy that, I need to recreate this fortress and brings the questions, are these tools available? And if they are available as services or features from the cloud provider, are they the same ones that I use? Or am I going to have to go and rewrite a set of rules? Am I going to have to re-implement the intelligence sitting behind the fortress that I built? Are the tools, even though they might have the same brand name, are they the same version? Do they speak the same language? Have I got to adjust and tune, do things a different way? And that might just be for one fortress. What about the other fortress that I go to? What if it's AWS plus another cloud provider? Are they available in the other fortresses? And if they're not, do I have to go back and rebuild all that stuff? And the last two things is, by the way, you don't own the walls anymore. And also you don't know who's inside the walls with you. So security of the cloud is critical, and Amazon are very clear about that. If you don't trust it, you don't trust your supply, they wouldn't be successful. But security in the cloud is even more important. And so for Armour, what do we deliver? We deliver effective workload protection regardless of where the workload is sitting. If we can see the operating system, we can deploy to it. This delivers effective dwell time, so the time between penetration and detection. Our dwell time is audited at less than 1 day. In fact, at the moment it's currently sitting at about 8 hours, compared to the industry average of 78 days. So that's 2.5 months that someone could be in your system without knowing about it. And false positives, when one of these systems squawks that says I've got a problem or I think there's an indication of compromise, the industry average for false positive rate is 30 to 40%. So 35 out of every 100 alerts are things that are okay, but you have to invest time in looking at them. Our false positive rate is less than 4%. So we deliver that with multi-cloud capability. We don't care where the data is, we don't care where the instance is. From a single pane of glass, regardless of how many fortresses I'm working across, whether it's my own, whether it's Amazon, whether it's other cloud providers, we bring that all together from a single ticketing and a single alerting system. There is absolutely zero infrastructure required, so you don't have to deploy anything. You don't have to manage anything. There's no technical, there's no legacy debt, IT legacy debt, because there's no infrastructure required. And without the cost of DIY. Two stats to sit behind that. When we do TCO studies for customers who need 24/7 security for their environments, from a standing start, our day one TCO savings are somewhere between 60 and 80%, depending on the size of the workload, depending on the level of attention to eyes on screen that you need. And also Forrester recently did a study around a total economic impact of using Armour Anywhere versus building a DIY approach. And their published study said that our total return on investment was in the order of 774% versus building it yourself. So what do you get? You get intrusion detection and intrusion prevention, malware protection, file integrity monitoring, vulnerability scanning, recommendation scans, and a security log collector. Across wherever your workloads are working, we deploy in minutes. We support all the modern operating systems and all of the cloud platforms and locations you can see on the bottom of the slide there. And we do this on a pure consumption basis. And the interesting thing for us about the partnership between Armour and Bytes AWS, as you go on your cloud journey with Bytes AWS, they become the service partner that's helping you resolve any security incidents as we alert them. So really becoming a true partnership between Amazon, Bytes AWS and Armour in terms of detection, response, keeping people out and getting people out should they get through. So we also have for organizations who want to have an outward view and mainly protect against open doors or accidental entry points into your environment, we provide a cloud security posture management tool. And this is key for a number of outcomes for customers. The first one is making sure that the door's shut and I keep it shut to unwanted traffic to reduce the honest mistakes and the accidental reason for breaches. But also it means that compliance controls and compliance audits can be addressed very quickly by a reference to the output of the CSPM tool alongside all of the logs that we're storing, as I said, for up to 13 months to make compliance a kind of out-of-the-box exercise using Armour anyway. So, for example, PCI DSS, we comply to all the controls and are audited against PCI DSS to make sure we're delivering against all of those controls, as well as some of the other ones like HIPAA and High Trust, which are more healthcare related, but also with GDPR audits, because we supply the logs to say, here's the protection we put in place and here's the activity that's been going on our systems. Now, I appreciate that I've really rattled through that and gone very quickly, but I just wanted to finish on this and say, we provide effective workload protection from a security perspective with low dwell times, low false positives, with multi-cloud capability from a single pane of glass, with no infrastructure required, no upfront investment and no legacy debt for basically a license fee per instance per month. I think I did that in 6 minutes, which is a record for me, as anybody will know me. If you have any questions, please put them in the panel, and please get in touch with your Bytes AWS partner if you want to continue the conversation around keeping your workload secure in the cloud. Back to you, Simon.
Thanks very much, Chris. Appreciate the speediness of that one. And apologies for slightly overrunning, guys. I think we haven't had a huge amount of questions coming anyway. I suspect a lot of it will probably need further discussions if anybody is interested in some of the things we've covered around the funding, OGVA, Armour, Druva, Windows on AWS. So please reach out to your account managers. We will also be reaching out to you just to follow up to make sure that if there is any interest, we're capturing that and obviously getting you onto a relevant program. So just thank you for your time today. Have a great afternoon and stay safe. Thank you.